Welcome to the audiobook version of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. It is a self-help book that challenges readers to adopt a more realistic and grounded approach to life based on self-awareness and personal responsibility. In this book, Manson shares his insight and strategies for finding greater fulfillment and meaning in life by focusing on what truly matters and letting go of the things that don't. So now, take a comfortable seat, let yourself unwind, and prepare to have your worldview challenged. Chapter 1. Don't Try. In this chapter, Mark Manson introduces the idea that striving for happiness and success is not always the best approach to life. He argues that many of us have been conditioned to believe that we should always be striving for something, but that mindset can actually be harmful and lead to feeling of anxiety and dissatisfaction. Manson suggests that instead of trying to be happy all the time, we should learn to accept and embrace the struggles and challenges that comes with life. He encourages readers to focus on the things that truly matters to them and let go of the things that don't. One of the key ideas in this chapter is the concept of feedback loop from hell. This is the idea that when we try too hard to be happy or successful, we often become more anxious and stressed, which can lead to more negative thoughts and feelings. Manson argues that the key to breaking this cycle is to embrace the negative aspects of life and to use them as motivation to improve ourselves and our situation. Overall, Chapter 1 sets the stage for the rest of the book by challenging readers to rethink their approach to happiness and success. It encourages us to stop trying so hard to be perfect and to embrace the messy, imperfect reality of life. Chapter 2. Happiness is a Problem. In this chapter, Mark Manson explores the idea that our cultural obsession with happiness has led us to become more unhappy. Manson argues that we have been sold the idea that happiness is the ultimate goal of life and that we should always be striving for it. However, he suggests that this mindset actually causes more problem than it solves. When we are constantly focused on trying to be happy, we become more sensitive to the things that make us unhappy. Manson suggests that we should focus on solving problems rather than pursuing happiness. He argues that by accepting the fact that life is difficult and that there will always be challenges, we can learn to deal with those challenges more effectively. One of the key ideas in this chapter is the concept of the backwards law. This is the idea that the more we try to be happy, the more miserable we become. Manson suggests that instead of trying to be happy all the time, we should accept the fact that negative experiences and emotions are a natural part of life. Overall, Chapter 2 challenges readers to reconsider their relationships with happiness. It encourages us to focus on solving problems rather than pursuing happiness and to accept the fact that life is difficult. By doing so, we can learn to deal with the challenges of the life more effectively and find a greater sense of contentment and fulfillment. Chapter 3. You are not special. In this chapter, Mark Manson explores the idea that many of us have been raised with a sense of entitlement and a belief that we are inherently special or unique. Manson argues that this belief is not only false but also harmful. When we believe that we are special and entitled to success and happiness, we become more sensitive to failure and disappointment. We also become less willingly to put in the hard work and effort required to achieve our goals. Manson suggests that we should embrace the idea that we are not special or entitled to anything. He argues that we should focus on the things that we can control, such as our values and our actions, rather than our perceived sense of specialness. One of the key ideas in this chapter is the concept of the mediocrity paradox. This is the idea that when we accept the fact that we are not special, we are free to pursue our passion and interests without the pressure to be the best. This can actually lead to a greater sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in life. Overall, Chapter 3 challenges readers to let go of their sense of entitlement and specialness. It encourages us to focus on the thing that we can control and to pursue our passion without the pressure to be the best. By doing so, we can find a greater sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in life. Chapter 4 The Value of Suffering. In this chapter, Mark Manson explores the idea that suffering is an inevitable part of life, but that it can also have value and meaning. Manson argues that we often try to avoid suffering at all costs, but that this is not a realistic or healthy approach to life. He suggests that by embracing the reality of suffering, we can learn to deal with it more effectively and even find meaning in it. One of the key ideas in this chapter is the concept of the principle of delayed gratification. This is the idea that by accepting and even embracing suffering in the present, we can set ourselves for greater success and happiness in the future. Manson also discusses the importance of having a sense of purpose or meaning in life. He suggests that by finding something that is bigger than ourselves to work towards, we can find greater fulfillment and satisfaction in life, even in the midst of sufferings. Overall, Chapter 4 challenges readers to rethink their approach to suffering. It encourages us to accept the reality of suffering and to find meaning and purpose in it. By doing so, we can learn to deal with it more effectively and find a greater sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in life. Chapter 5 You Are Always Choosing. In this chapter, Mark Manson explores the idea that we are always making choices, even when we feel like we have no control over our lives. Manson argues that we often feel trapped in our circumstances and believe that we have no choice but to accept them. However, he suggests that even in the most difficult situation, we always have the power to choose our response. One of the key ideas in this chapter is the concept of responsibility. Manson argues that by taking responsibility for your choices and actions, we can gain a greater sense of control over our lives and find greater satisfaction and fulfillment. Manson also discusses the importance of setting boundaries and learning to say no to the things that don't align with our values and priorities. He suggests that by being more selective about the thing we say yes to, we can free up our time and energy to focus on the things that truly matter to us. Overall, Chapter 5 challenges readers to take ownership of their lives and to recognize the power of their choices. It encourages us to take responsibility for your actions, set boundaries, and be more intentional about the things we say yes to. By doing so, we can gain a greater sense of control over our lives and find greater satisfaction and fulfillment. Chapter 6 You're wrong about everything, but so am I. In this chapter, Mark Manson explores the idea that we are all limited by our own perspective and biases, and that our beliefs and opinions are often based on the incomplete or faulty information. Manson argues that we should be more open to the idea that we could be wrong about everything, and that we should be willing to challenge our own beliefs and opinions. He suggests that by being more open-minded and willing to consider different perspectives, we can gain a greater understanding of the world and ourselves. One of the key ideas in this chapter is the concept of embracing our limitations. Manson argues that by recognizing our limitation and accepting that we don't have all the answers, we can become more humble, compassionate, and self-aware. Manson also discusses the importance of listening to others and seeking out diverse perspectives. He suggests that by being more open to the ideas and opinions of others, we can broaden our understanding of the world and become more empathetic and compassionate towards others. Overall, Chapter 6 challenges readers to be more open-minded and humble in their approach to life. It encourages us to recognize our limitation and be more willing to challenge our own beliefs and opinions. By doing so, we can gain a greater understanding of the world and ourselves and become more empathetic and compassionate towards others. Chapter 7. Failure is the way forward. In this chapter, Mark Manson explores the idea that failure is an essential part of success and personal growth, and that we should learn to embrace and learn from our failures instead of avoiding them. Manson argues that we often fear failure and try to avoid it at all cost, but that this is a self-defeating approach to life. He suggests that by embracing failure and learning from our mistakes, we can become more resilient, adaptable, and successful in the long run. One of the key ideas in this chapter is the concept of embracing uncertainty. Manson argues that by accepting that we don't have all the answers and that life is inherently uncertain, we can become more comfortable with the unknown and more willing to take risks. Manson also discusses the importance of persistence and perseverance in the face of failure. He suggests that by continuing to work towards our goal and not giving up in the face of setbacks and challenges, we can ultimately achieve success. Overall, Chapter 7 challenges reader to reframe their relationship with failure. It encourages us to embrace failure as an essential part of the learning process and to be more willing to take risks and persist in the face of adversity. By doing so, we can become more resilient, adaptable, and ultimately successful in the long run. Chapter 8. The importance of saying no. In this chapter, Mark Manson explores the idea that saying no is an essential part of setting healthy boundaries and living a fulfilling life. Manson argues that we often feel pressure to say yes to everything and everyone, whether it's because we want to please others or because we fear missing out. However, he suggests that saying no is crucial for maintaining our own well-being and avoiding burnout. One of the key ideas in this chapter is the concept of value-based living. Manson argues that by identifying our own values and priorities, we can become more intentional about the things we say yes to and more confident in our decision to say no. Manson also discussed the importance of being honest with ourselves and with others about our boundaries and limitations. He suggests that by setting clear boundaries and communicating them effectively, we can avoid resentment and maintain healthy relationships. Overall, Chapter 8 challenges reader to be more intentional and selective about the things we say yes to. It encourages us to prioritize our own well-being and to set healthy boundaries, even if it means saying no to others. By doing so, we can live more fulfilling and satisfying lives. Chapter 9. And Then You Die. In this chapter, Mark Manson explores the concept of mortality and the idea that our time on earth is limited. Manson argues that often we caught up in the trivialities of daily life and forget about the bigger picture. He suggests that by acknowledging our mortality and the finite nature of our time on earth, we can become more intentional about how we live our lives. One of the key ideas in this chapter is the concept of legacy. Manson argues that by focusing on the impact we want to have on the world and the people around us, we can find greater purpose and meaning in our lives. Manson also discusses the importance of accepting our own mortality and the inevitability of death. He suggests that by doing so, we can become more present and mindful in our daily lives and more appreciate of the time we have. Overall, Chapter 9 challenges reader to confront their own mortality and the finite nature of their time on earth. It encourages us to live more intentionally and purposely, focusing on the impact we want to have on the world and the people around us. By doing so, we can find greater meaning and fulfillment in our lives. So, talking about the overall learning from this book, the overall learning from the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, is to embrace a different perspective on life, one that is based on self-awareness and personal responsibility. The book challenges readers to question their assumption and belief about happiness, success, and the meaning of life, and to adopt a more realistic and grounded approach. One of the key themes in the book is the importance of focusing on what truly matters in life and letting go of the things that don't. This involves being more intentional about our priorities and values and being willing to say no to the things that don't align with them. Another important theme in the book is the idea that failure and pain are inevitable part of life and that we should embrace them as opportunity for growth and learning. This involves being willing to take risks and face our fears and to persevere in the face of setbacks and challenges. Overall, this book encourages readers to make a more active role in shaping their own lives rather than relying on external factors such as money, status, or other people's opinion to determine their happiness and success. By adopting a more self-aware and intentional approach, we can find greater fulfillment and meaning in our lives. Thank you for listening to audiobook of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. We hope that you find this book to be insightful and thought-provoking. Remember, the principles outlined in this book are not a one-size-fits-all solution, but rather a framework for approaching life's challenges with a new perspective. Once again, thank you for listening to this audiobook, and we wish you all the best on your journey towards a more meaningful and fulfilling life.